Okay, so this is continuing on the second leg of my journey down the coast from Olympia, Washington to San Diego, and I am currently in Astoria, Oregon. And we are going to head today to down the coast to Newport, Oregon. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this around to taxi. And I think instead of taxiing all the way to the end and heading back south, I'm just going to take off on this northerly heading. Just to kind of, probably wouldn't be all that interesting. To put you through that. So here we go. I'm going to take off now at full throttle. Time is 8:50 a.m. This could be kind of interesting anyway, because there's some interesting water land features here that we'll be flying over. Okay, we are off the ground. We have liftoff. I'm gonna take a look back because I like to do it. Looks cool. This is the airport we are leaving. Gonna fly right over the water here. Somewhere over here, this is kind of a bit of a shortcoming of some of these scenery discs, is there's no road here. A cool feature about Astoria is that there's a bridge. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it's like somewhere, maybe it's there. It's a really cool bridge. It's like this high bridge, and it's even a little bit, let's see, do I want to go left or right? I'll go right, just so you can kind of see maybe where it would be. If I can see it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see it on here. Oh, it's off to the left. Somewhere over here there would be a bridge, I think. I don't know, I'm getting kind of turned around. And that would have been cool if they would have at least somehow had just at least a road going over the water. But it's a very high bridge, and that would have been a really cool effect to pull off. They do have bridges in other scenery discs. So now I'm just heading back over the Astoria airport. And that's pretty cool that we have so much ocean there ahead of us. Like I've mentioned before, this should be all water, but that's just a shortcoming. They've only been able to load so much into memory of the scenery. I'm going to start now using the coastline for navigation, because we are going down south following the coast south. I'm not actually out over the water yet. Maybe I do want to get out on the water just a little bit. Get out over the water. And then I'll set my heading. While I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and look up Newport. Newport, I want to tune into the VOR station at Newport, and that is going to be at on this channel here, this frequency of 117. Whoops. Uh, 117.1. Is that right? I think that's right. Check on my map here, which you can't see. Yeah, Newport VOR, I do have that correct. It's possible it's too far away because I'm not getting any reading here on this Omni bearing indicator here. Maybe I need to start making some adjustments to see if anything changes. It's not picking up. It must just be too far away. I've read that that's possible. So I do kind of want to get out here over the ocean a little bit more. So in my last video, I was having some navigational problems, and what I was struggling with was I had this on a 2 bearing on this instrument right here, which I should know what it's called. I've forgotten. I think it's like an omnidirectional indicator or something like that. And the way this works is you dial in on the navigational radio frequency here. You dial in the station you're looking for. This thing shoots out like radials and these are like spokes on a wheel, and this tells you what wheel you're on, what spoke you're on of a 360 degrees on the wheel. And that can tell you whether you're headed to or from. You can set it to or from. And I was getting confused. This is probably isn't a good time to be talking about this because I don't have anything to work with here. But I was trying to get lined up with an airport. Oh, that's cool. What's that over there? Oh, just some glitch. I was trying to line up a runway at a heading of 210, and I was too far west. I was too far right of that runway ultimately, and this line here was off. It said 210, but it was off to the left. Well, really what that told me is I was too far right and I needed to go left, and I kind of figured it out towards the end, and I should know this anyway, but it was a little bit too late by the time I started making adjustments. So I learned something on that one. There is a closer airport that I might be able to pick up. No, there's not a VOR station directly south of here. I could get Newburgh, which looks like it's a suburb south of Portland, or town south of Portland. I'm going to do that on my nav 2, and I'm going to dial that in at 17.4. Oops. There we go. 17.4. I am picking that up down here. So now I'm going to start adjusting that. I'll probably would be picking up a, let's see, a from, let's see what a 2 is. Probably going to be about right around here. There we go. That line is moving there. I want to center that. So that is the 2 setting. So that's telling me that I'm on this radial of this 118, which is going to be off that way. If I were to turn left at 60 degrees, I would be headed for Newburgh, but I'm not going to Newburgh. I just wanted to dial in something that I could get a reading on. It'll kind of help me to know when I'm like, maybe like directly west of there, and that should let me know that I'm about midway there when I get a reading here, which would be west would be 270. Is that right? Well, no, that would be 90. It would be a 90 degree setting here for the 2. And it'll say, it'll be the opposite. It'll say 270 down here. So not too much to talk about right now, so I'm just going to let this go and I will tune back in. Probably a little too high. I'm gonna let this run. I'm not sure exactly how far I have to go, but that's a pretty long flight. Probably gonna guess it's maybe 70, possibly 80 miles or so. I think those are nautical miles, I'm not sure. So I've got, geez, at least 40, 50 minutes maybe before I get close to the airport. So I'm gonna let this go. There's really not much more to really talk about. I guess maybe there were some things I wanted to say. I mentioned on the last video that a lot of these scenery discs don't have mountains where there should be mountains. The coast of Oregon, there are mountains here. The coastal mountains, there's a coastal range on the coast of Oregon. I'm okay with them not showing up here. I can use my imagination, but it's the big mountain ranges that really bother me that they don't have. Like if I'm looking out to the east, I should see the Cascade Mountains here. Mount Hood should be somewhere over here. And that's kind of a shame that they weren't able to get that in. There are mountains on some of the other areas, but they really kind of dropped the ball on this one. This is Scenery Disc 4, which is pretty much basically the Northwest, and there's no mountains at all, and that's a bummer. Like, they should have, I feel like they should have gotten all of the major mountain ranges. Like the Olympics aren't on there. That's a big one for me. And then the Cascades aren't on here. They do have in the stock scenery disc that comes with Flight Simulator, there's four areas that you can choose from. Which is Chicago, New York, Seattle, and LA. There are mountains in the Seattle one. So they do have some of the Cascade Mountains are in there. They have Mount Rainier, and then some of the Cascade Mountains directly east of Seattle. But they don't have the Olympics, and that's a bummer to me. And then in LA, they do have the mountains that are sort of northeast of LA. They have those mountains. And I know that on Scenery Disc 5, well, San Francisco, the Star Scenery Disc for San Francisco has some mountains as well. Some of the mountains that are directly east of San Francisco even has some hills. It has like, I think it's called Mount Tam, is that right? Which is north of the Golden Gate Bridge. It has that, and then it has like a big hill in San Francisco itself. So there's a lot of terrain, there's a lot of features in that disc. And I also know that on disc 5, which is kind of like Central Rockies, I briefly have seen in Salt Lake City and Denver that there's mountains around there. I don't know how how much else of that disc has mountains, but I know they're on there, so I'm really happy about that. I know, so they got some of the Rocky Mountains in there. But anyway, that's my spiel about mountains. So I am going to leave this now, and then I will come back when I start getting closer to Newport. So I will see you then. Okay, well that wasn't very long. I started getting a reading here. It picked up, it finally did pick up Newport. So I'm gonna start dialing that in. It's at 164.5. This is basically telling me I am headed pretty much straight there right now on my current heading of 163, and saying that I'm 76 miles away. So that's a good long ways away still, and my current speed, which is about 70 knots, it's going to be more than an hour probably, which is fine. I have other things I need to be doing, so I probably should just kind of let this run. And I do want to check this down here. Because this one is starting to get pretty close to 90 degrees. But as I was looking at this map, it's not going to be quite halfway when I get there. Anyway, I'm going to let this go, and I will tune back in a bit. Okay, I've started to get close now, so I'm tuning back in here on my approach into Newport, and I've started a descent here. It's actually a pretty rapid descent. Don't know that it needs to be that fast. Come up on some throttle a little bit to slow my descent a little bit. I'm 25.5 miles out from Newport now. I'm now at about 3,500 feet. And I'm going to check out my map. For Newport. And where is it? Okay, I'm not looking at the right map. Here we go. So there's a runway. There's two runways. One with a heading of, let's see, like 160, and one a heading of 200. So yeah, I would choose the 160 heading since I'm already almost on that heading. Let me dial in. Let's see. Dial in Newport a little bit better. 170. So I do need to get over to about 170. So a more west heading. And that should be 170. I'm headed straight for Newport, 21 miles out. And Newport sits at 161 feet above sea level. So one of the things that's kind of cool about this journey that I'm on here is I've been to most of these places in real life. I live in Seattle, and oh, wait a minute here. I am descending a little too fast. I don't want to get much lower than 2,000 feet. I don't think. So I've been to all of these places that I'll be flying on one trip or another, down all the way down the coast and back driving. I've done that twice, from Seattle all the way down to San Diego and back, and then from Seattle to San Francisco by car. I've done that, I believe, 5 times. And then this particular coastal route, following the coast, I've been on once, down to just inside of Northern California, I believe Crescent City. Back in, I would say, that was 1998. My parents flew out here from Michigan. That's where where I'm from originally. And flew out to Seattle, and we drove down to Eugene, Oregon, for a football game to see Michigan State. That's my alma mater, and my dad's too. We went to see them play Oregon in Eugene that year, and my mom was with us, and she flew out. My parents flew out, and we drove down to Eugene. And then we took then after the game, we continued south and went to Crescent Lake, or Crater Lake, and then we went down to then we went. I forget exactly how we did, but we ended up going down and went through the redwoods down to the coast of California, which I believe was maybe Crescent City, and then drove straight up the coast. I don't know if that's 101, where you're driving right on the coast. So we were on the coast of Oregon all the way, well, all the way, I believe, from Crescent City. We were on the coast all the way back up to at least Astoria. I don't remember. We might have gone maybe further up to Aberdeen or something like that before we headed back over to I-5. But anyway, we were in this area right here, coming back up the coast. And oh, that must be Newport. And I remember Newport as being, okay, I got to get kind of focused here. Pause that thought. So, okay, so 160 is one of the headings for one of the runways. So I actually do want to go this way to get lined up with that runway. I believe I want to head out over the water maybe a little bit. And let me start to pull back on some throttle. Wait, am I doing this right? Yeah, I am doing this right. So I'm currently on a radial of 166. And then this is going to gradually start to, where's it going to go? It should start to go this way. And when it gets to about 160 is when I want to turn left onto that heading of 160. And that should be lining me up with the runway. Maybe I should gradually be turning that way a little bit. And I am compensating for this number here, 162. Getting close to where I probably should be turning more. There we go, 160. So I definitely want to get on the heading of 160 now. Hopefully I do a little bit better job of lining up this runway than I did last time. We're currently at 1,000 feet. Which is a pretty good rate of descent, about 300 feet or so. I don't know if that's seconds or minutes. I gotta figure that out. At this point, I am going to dump the flaps. It's this reading right here. Switch controllers. Okay, that is one tick. That's going to shoot me up a little bit. Go another one. It's going to pull me up a little bit, so I'm going to apply some elevator down a little bit. Then flaps again. That's gonna push me up a little bit, or it should. Oh, I'm descending way too fast. Uh-oh. Okay. At 600 feet now, I'm too low. Pull up a little bit. Wow, somehow I ended up at 167 heading. How did that happen? Some up throttle. I'm at 500 feet, really 400 feet above where I want to be. I mean, above. I need more throttle. Just coming in too low, really. I gotta tell you, this this 8-bit graphics here, things shift around a lot, so it's really tricky to line things up. Four miles out. Flight dynamics do seem different in these scenery discs. I would not expect to be able to have this much throttle without lifting me way up and not really increasing my airspeed a lot. I'm only at about 75 knots or so. So I'm coming in now 3 miles, 3.5 miles. I know that I read where it was recommended that you don't dump the flaps until about 1.5 miles out or something like that. I like to make my adjustments earlier and go into really slow flight as soon as possible. I don't know how much that applies to real life flight, but it seems to work out pretty good for me in this flight simulator. Well, I've got this thing lined up pretty good right now. Gonna go and take out some throttle. Oh. Maybe. I'm only about 300 feet above sea level. I mean above ground. Two miles out. .8. Well, that's not from the front of the runway. I should not get that confused, actually. I'm going to go ahead and come way down on the throttle then. I should not have been using that as a judge. Coming down. Cutting throttle. Okay, I think I'm on the ground. Applying brakes, and I'm stopped. I'm down. Okay, that was a good landing. That was a good landing. Newport. I had a story about Newport, but I think I'm gonna save it for probably when I take off in the next segment. Not that it's any great story or anything, but just wanted to share my memories of Newport. So I will let me just check, give you a view of, oh, that's weird. Newport. Airport. And I will give you a 360 around. There's really not much to see. You can kind of see the ocean from here. All the way around. There should be mountains there, but there's no mountains. Okay, here we are, Newport, Oregon. And it's almost, what, 10 o'clock a.m. according to that clock. And oh, I was mentioning that DME here reading is 0.6, and I realize now that sometimes I forget that I read that as if that's taking me to the front of the runway, the head of the runway, and thinking that's like what I am counting my mileage down to, but it's actually not. This, well, it would be the VOR, wherever the VOR is. I'm still a half mile away from wherever that VOR is. So that's not entirely accurate. It's just a kind of a rough estimate of where the airport is. So I need to be aware of that, because it's not always right. It's just one spot near the airport. It doesn't really tell you exactly the runway that you're trying to get to. The airport's a pretty big place, so I got to be more cognizant of that next time. Oh, I didn't have my flaps all the way down. That's interesting. Oh yeah, and that was one thing too. In the last, when I took off from Olympia, I left my flaps down, which you can do for takeoff. I've seen it recommended to do for takeoff, but I forgot, and I left them down, and so I've got them back up now. But the flaps, what they do is they really they go down in the back, and then it pitches your plane up a little bit, and it really slows you down. So it's really great for you to use it for landing or for really slow flight. but I had for a good portion of my flight from Astoria, I had my flaps down and I was going really slow. So anyway, so I'm going to sign off for now, and then I will pick back up again for the next leg of my flight, my trip. I will be flying from, where am I going to go? From Newport to I haven't decided fully yet. I might go to North Bend, which I know has, I just know from Flight Simulator has some cool sort of water features in it, like a cool bay inlet thing, which might be fun to fly into. Or I could shoot all the way down to Crescent City. Or Gold Beach even, if I wanted. So it kind of depends on how I'm feeling. That is a kind of a long haul from Newport to Crescent City, but that would be good to kind of take down some miles. Anyway, I will check back in with you on the next leg of my trip. So blessings be. Thanks for watching. One thing I wanted to check was the fuel. At some point I did switch tanks, so they're both about equal now actually. But the last time I landed in Astoria, and then I went into the editor mode and then came back, I had full tanks of gas. So I want to test that theory again. So I'm going into editor, going out of editor. Yep, full tanks of gas right there. Oh, what happened here? That's weird. Something got weird by that when going into the editor. Anyway, editor will change up. Sometimes it changes certain parameters that aren't the same that you left. So that was kind of weird. Anyway, full tanks of gas. I'm fueled up for the next leg of my trip. So blessings be. Thanks for watching.